slowly, she began to lose strength and her voice slowly became weaker.
God forbid that it is an albino that would have our grandchild. To fear, we refuse such abomination,
they said. Chukwudozie stormed out of his parents' apartment angrily, banging the door behind him. He could hear his mom's voice calling him. Dozie, come back! Come back! Chukwudozie! He heard that call. But he didn't stop, didn't pause, or even attempt to look behind for a second. He walked to the parking lot where he had parked his car, a shiny, dove grey 2024 model Bentley Bentayga. He got into it, started it, and sped out of the compound, leaving the gateman Abdul, who had initially been gently opening the gates, to jump aside in panic. Wetin happen wey make small oga drive comot anyhow like this? Like say na vex small oga take vex comot for here so. And he almost jam you. Thank God say I fast strong comot. If not, maybe I for don dey on the journey to go meet my papa wey don die for the other side, the gateman Abdul said. But wait o, which kind matter wey make small oga vex comot like this? Abdul wondered. The Odumeje family is a multimillionaire family owning a major telecommunication company in the country as their major source of income, and a few other businesses, with real estate as one of them. The family's patriarch, Chief Nelson Odumeje, is a man in his early 60s and is from Anambra State. And their matriarch, Chief Nelson's wife, is Amara Odumeje, a very beautiful chubby woman, even in her mid-50s. The Odumejes has 3 children, 2 daughters and an only son. Chukwudozie is that only son. Adanna, their first child and daughter, is older than Chukwudozie and is married. Obiageri, their second daughter, was born after Chukwudozie, making her the last child of the family. Chukwudozie had been the apple of his parents' eyes, especially his mother, because he was his son. From where they came from, they value male children highly, and as such, treated Chukwudozie that way. They gave Chukwudozie the best of everything money could afford. Good clothes, shoes, sent him to one of the best private secondary schools in Lagos, and later to Canada for his first degree and master's. And when he completed his master's and returned, his father made him the overall executive director of his company. Now, Chief Nelson is friends with a man called Honorable Amechi. Honorable Amechi is also a wealthy man and has an oil and gas company. But not only is he a wealthy man because he's into oil and gas, but he's also a politician. He is a member of the Senate, representing his states. And oftentimes in the past, Honorable Amechi has used his influence to help Chief Nelson secure contracts and favors from the government. And it is why the two men came together and agreed that they solidify their bond and friendship by uniting as families. And to do this, they agreed that their children should get married. Honorable Amechi has no son. He has only just 2 daughters. So, he agreed that his first daughter, Eunice, should be married to Chief Nelson's son, Chukwudozie. Even as an adult, a mature man of 28 years old, Chukwudozie respects his parents because he loves and adores them. So, he did not complain and readily accepted that he was going to marry Eunice, since it was going to make his father happy and since it was for the good of his father's company. Eunice, on the other hand, thought Chukwudozie is so good looking. He is tall, has a shiny dark skin, broad-chested, and a beautifully carved face. So, she also decided to give the union a chance. But what Chukwudozie, his family, and Eunice's parents did not know was that Eunice was adventurous and saw the whole marriage arrangement as an adventure more than something to be taken seriously. So, even while engaged to Chukwudozie, she frolicked with other men, not to say the least. She was even wayward, arrogant, and hot-tempered. Chukwudozie had complained about Bernice's attitude to his parents, but they told him to overlook it and that Bernice was only just being a child and naughty because she was the daughter of a wealthy man. When you two get married and start your own family, she would adjust accordingly, Chukwudozie's parents had said to him. And Chukwudozie did try his best. He tried to overlook and accommodate Bernice's unruly attitude. Twice, she had raised her hand to slap him when he tried to caution and advise her. Just because we are going to get married does not mean that you have the right to tell me what to do. Are you forgetting the daughter of who I am? Bernice had said to him. Yet, Chukwudozie overlooked it all just to please and honor his parents. Then one afternoon, this was about 5 weeks to their proposed traditional wedding and engagement party. Arrangements were in motion, invitation cards had been printed and sent out, and friends and families counted days as they anticipated the day of the wedding. Chukwudozie decided to drop by at Honorable Ameshi's residence to introduce Bernice to his friend Tade, who just flew into Nigeria. Tade and Chukwudozie were roommates and schoolmates back in school in Canada. Chukwudozie had gone to pick up Tade from the airport, and on their way, they spoke about Bernice and Chukwudozie's forthcoming traditional wedding. And while they talked about it, Chukwudozie suggested that they drop by at Bernice's house so his friend Tade could meet Bernice in person, since Bernice's residence wasn't far from the airport, and so Tade wouldn't have to wait till the day of their traditional wedding to get to see her, because he had only seen pictures of her. They agreed that it wasn't a bad idea, so Chukwudozie picked up his phone to call Bernice to inform her that he was coming over with his best friend, who just returned from Canada. However, Bernice's line kept ringing, but she didn't take his call. He called twice and later texted her and waited for her to reply, but no reply came forth. Chukwudozie was going to forget about it and drive Tade straight home when Bernice's younger sister, Erica, called. Erica was assisting the event planner in planning Bernice's and Chukwudozie's wedding, and so had called Chukwudozie to confirm how many of his friends, as friends of the groom, were going to be around for the wedding, because they were going to make special arrangements for them as well. It was in the course of it that Chukwudozie mentioned to Erica that he had tried reaching Bernice a few minutes earlier before her call came in. Erica told him that he could still take Tade to go see her sister, and that her sister Bernice is at home with her best friend as well, before she left them in the house to go meet with the event planner. I am sure she must have left her phone in her bedroom or the living room and is busy gisting with her friend elsewhere. You can go to the house. I left them about 15 minutes ago, and I am sure that her friend should still be in the house as well, Erica said to Chukwudozie. So, Chukwudozie turned around and drove with Tade to go see Bernice, since they hadn't gone so far. Welcome, sir. Madam Bernice is there inside the room with her friend Judith, the house help, told Chukwudozie when he arrived at Bernice's house. Make I go let her know say you won't see him, the house help said to him, and had already made her way to go when Chukwudozie stopped her and told her he would go to Bernice instead. But when Chukwudozie got closer to Bernice's room, he heard weird and funny sounds, moaning sounds, the kind that a woman makes when in pleasure. He paused, wondering if it was his mind playing tricks on him and if he was just imagining things. Curiosity got him. He got closer to her door and pushed it open without knocking. And there, he saw Bernice and her supposed best friend Judith in a disgusted sight. They were naked and using their hands to pleasure each other. Bernice and her friend Judith were lesbians. Now, Chukwudozie knows that Bernice is rude, arrogant, and a little spoilt because she lived in the euphoria of her parents' wealth and status. And he believed that it was something he could manage just as his parents had said. But that day, he realized that she wasn't only just rude and mannerless, but she was also highly immoral. Because Bernice did not even flinch when Chukwudozie walked in on her and her friend doing the abominable. Instead, she called him to join them. Care to join us? It will be fun, and we can always have it this way when we get married. The three of us," she said, smiling. Even the house help, who was coming to ask Bernice if she should serve them lunch, also walked in on them and witnessed the abominable sight, shocked as Chukwudozie was. Chukwudozie walked back to the living room where he had left Sade and left with him immediately in anger, shock, and disappointment. And that was it. Chukwudozie told his parents what he saw and who Bernice is, and told them that he was no longer interested in marrying Bernice, no longer interested in marrying a shameless lesbian. However, when the Odumeje spoke to Honorable Amechi about it, Bernice denied it flatly before her parents. Even the house help couldn't open her mouth to say what she saw and confirm that Chukwudozie was telling the truth, because Bernice had warned and threatened to deal with her if she attests to what she saw. Honorable Amechi and his wife were angry and believed that Chukwudozie had insulted and disrespected them, and that he was accusing their daughter falsely. Chief Nelson begged, assuring Honorable Amechi that he would make Chukwudozie tender an apology and that the marriage arrangement would go on as planned. And that was what Chukwudozie's parents were talking to him about. They were insisting that he apologize to Bernice and her parents and should continue with the marriage. Chukwudozie had always listened to his parents, did everything they wanted, and never challenged their decision. But now, he was standing his ground and told them that he would not listen to them this time. That nothing they say or do would make him marry Bernice. So that was what made him walk out on his parents, banged the door in their face, why he hadn't looked back or bulged when his mother was calling him to come back, and why he had entered his car and drove out of his parents' compound angrily, almost knocking Abdul. Chukwudozie could hear his heart beat rapidly as he drove angrily that night and was heading to Tade's place. Selfish people. All my life, I have listened to them and do everything they ask of me. Living my life like a puppet just to please them. All for what? Just so I could be the good son who appreciates his parents' sacrifices. But not anymore. Not anymore. I don't care if they cut me off. I don't give a damn, he said to himself, remembering his father's threats to disown him if he doesn't marry Bernice. Chukwudozie was driving in a high speed, in anger, and was deeply lost in his angry thoughts and wasn't paying much attention on the road, so he hadn't noticed a pothole that was ahead of him. When he finally noticed it and tried to dodge it, it was already too late, as he had been driving at a high speed, and boom, he would have hit a blind beggar and his teenage son. But for a young lady who was fast, ran and quickly dragged the beggar and his son to the corner, saving them from what would have been a fatal accident. Chukwudozie hit his car hard against the concrete curbstone instead. People ran and gathered at the scene immediately, having witnessed the accident that would have been fatal. You won't keep person? This big goat no reach you to drive. Why you enter walkway? Why you carry car enter road when you know say you know sabi drive? Different agitated voices said, raining insults at Chukwudozie. Even the blind beggar cursed him. Daniska, Chege Banza, he said, as he tried to maintain his balance with the help of his son. Meanwhile, the young lady who had saved the beggar and his son was on the ground because she fell heavily herself whilst trying to help the beggar and had hit her hip bone hard against the concrete curb. A few people had gathered around her, asking her if she was okay, and were trying to lift her up. Chukwudozie came out of his car immediately, ignored all the insults that were being hurled at him, and also ran to check if the lady was okay. He got closer, and that was when he saw properly the face of the lady who had just helped him averted what would have been fatal. Seated on the ground and was in pain was a woman with a very pale skin, light brown eyes, and an extremely light blonde hair. That was when Chukwudozie noticed that the young lady was an albino. The only incident had happened fast that he hadn't taken note of this earlier until he went to the lady. Are you alright? He asked gently. surprised that it was an albino who saw the impending danger and had moved fast to stop it. "Are you okay?" he asked again. The young lady nodded her head to say that she was fine. "Please, let me take you to the hospital to be sure you will be alright," he said. The young lady nodded again in agreement and made to go with Chukwudozie as he gently lifted her up. "Ha! Don't follow him, oh. What if he's a ritualist? Can't you see the car he drives and that he tries to kill you?" someone from the crowd said. But the young lady ignored and followed Chukwudozie anyway. He took her to the closest hospital he could find and waited at the reception whilst the doctors ran tests and administered treatments to the lady. After about almost an hour, the doctor came out and told Chukwudozie, "She is absolutely fine, just a minor joint pain at the area where she hit herself against the concrete curb. We have given her muscle relaxant and some painkillers and the pain will disappear in a few days," the doctor said. Chukwudozie took a deep breath of relief, after which he went to the lady and offered to take her home. "I am so sorry about the accidents. I assure you that I am not a careless driver. I only just had something heavy on my mind at the time and was lost in thought," Chukwudozie said, trying to explain himself to the lady as he drove her home. "Okay," was all the lady replied. "And thank you for stepping in to avert what may have been a fatal accident. That was so selfless of you. Thank you so much. You did not only save the beggar and his son, but also saved me from being a murderer," Chukwudozie said again. The rest of the ride was quiet until they got to the address the lady had given him, her house. "My name is Chukwudozie, by the way," Chukwudozie told the lady before she stepped out of his car. "My name is Eunice," the lady replied. "Thanks once again," Chukwudozie said before driving off. When he arrived at Sade's place, he told him everything from the altercation with his parents, the accident, and about Eunice, the young superhuman albino Chukwudozie described her, as he was still in disbelief that an albino could be that alert and fast. The next day at noon, Chukwudozie decided to check on Eunice, so he paid her a visit and took fruits and beverages with him as gifts. 4 days after that, he paid her another visit again, even though by this time, they had now exchanged their mobile numbers, and Eunice had even told him she was getting better when he called her on the phone. A week later, he went again. This time, when Chukwudozie got there, he met Eunice on her way to church for midweek service. Eunice invited him to follow her to church, and Chukwudozie agreed. Chukwudozie isn't one who attends church. Not like he had anything against attending church, but growing up, his parents never took him to church. They only did when a friend or family invites them to their church for a celebration. Thanksgiving, weddings, child dedications, and all that. But other than that, they barely attend church, even though they claim that they were Christians. The days earlier before that day, after the altercation with his parents and the near accident, Chukwudozie had been at Sade's place and had refused to go home. His mother and sisters called him several times, begging and trying to convince him to go ahead with the marriage and not put the family's name to shame. But he had made up his mind and would not change it. And earlier that afternoon, before coming to Eunice's place, he had gone home to pick his passport so he would travel and leave the country. He told himself that leaving the country for a while would reduce the tension and that his parents wouldn't see him and wouldn't have to force him to marry Bernice. However, as he was about leaving home after picking his passport and other important documents, his father, Chief Nelson, walked in. Chukwudozie had not expected his father to walk in because he was told that his father had traveled briefly on a business trip. Unfortunately for Chukwudozie, the trip was cancelled, so his father returned and met him. When his father saw Chukwudozie with his documents and international passports, he knew immediately that Chukwudozie was trying to leave the country. Enraged and furious, Chief Nelson forcefully dragged the passport and documents from his son's hands and tore them to pieces. "You don't want to do as I say and help our family business. Yet, you have the guts to attempt to travel out with the same money and international passport gotten from the business. You lie. It is either you marry Honorable Ameshi's daughter for the sake of our company, or forget about enjoying any benefits that comes from the business, Chukwudozie's father had said to him. So, Chukwudozie had left his parents' house once again in anger. He would have headed back to Tade's place where he had been all this while, but that day, Tade was expecting his own girlfriend as well, and they all planned to have dinner together. Chukwudozie figured out that if he went to Tade's place with the mood he was in, he might ruin the dinner hangout for everybody. So, he decided that he should probably go somewhere else to cool off. He thought of going to the house of a few friends, but changed his mind because he didn't want to bring up his family issues with outsiders. Tade was the only friend he genuinely trusts. Then, he thought of going to a bar, but decided that it was a bad idea also because he was not one who takes alcohol, and the last time he tried it, he made a big mess of himself. And that was when Eunice came to his mind again. He thought of paying her a visit again, as that would be a good distraction because Eunice's place was quite a distance from his parents' home. So, he felt that driving all the way there was indeed a good distraction. And that was how we drove to Eunice's place that evening and met her on our way to church. I told you on the phone already that I am doing perfectly okay now, so you didn't have to drive this far to come see me, Eunice had said to him. Well, now that you are here, I am on my way out as you can see. I am going to church for Bible study, and I am sorry I can't stay back to welcome you in, except you will follow me to church, Eunice said to him. Chukwudozie replied yes immediately. Yes, church. Church would be a good distraction, he thought to himself. So, he went to church with Eunice. On their way back after the Bible study service, Eunice could tell that something was bothering Chukwudozie, so she spoke to him. You try to hide it, but I can tell something is bothering you. It is not just today. It has always been there every single time you paid me a visit. And you said so yourself on the day we first met after the near accident when you were bringing me home. So, do you care to share? Eunice asked softly. Chukwudozie hesitated for a moment because he wasn't someone who would go about sharing his problems to strangers. He is a very secretive person and only shares his problems and secrets with Tade and his older sister Adana, the only two people whom he actually really trusts. Besides, he had come to Eunice's place because he felt it was a good distraction since he couldn't speak to Tade at the moment. But seconds later, after Eunice asked him that question, he couldn't help himself and he told her everything. How his father was trying to make him marry an immoral woman because of his selfish interest. I feel like I am at a dead end. My father already destroyed my passports and important documents. And I received a text on my way here from the company's account officer saying that my father ordered them to write to the bank to freeze my accounts. I am sure that soon they would also seize this car. All my life, I have worked for my father's company and every investment I have is tied and linked to him. So, it is either I do as my father says or I am left with nothing, Chukwudozie said sadly. Eunice was quiet for a while after listening to Chukwudozie. She felt bad for him. Then she told him, just pray about it. Talk to God about it. And he will take care of the issue. That is what I do whenever I am at a crossroad or need solution to a problem, Eunice said. She told him about herself, her story, how her mother hated her because she was albino. Her mother was married to her father, but unfortunately, he died in an accident a few months before her birth. Then her mother tried to remarry years later, but all the men who wanted to marry her mother left when they found out that she has an albino daughter. Her mother hated her because of this. If I knew that your father had the gene of albinism in his lineage, I wouldn't have married him. You are a curse to me, her mother had often said to her. Eventually, her mother abandoned her with her grandmother in the village and ran off with another man. For years as she grew, Eunice said that she hated her mother until suddenly years later, when her mother showed up and asked for forgiveness. I didn't want to forgive my mother. It was difficult for me too. But I prayed to God about it and asked him to help me forgive my mother. And he did, Eunice explained. Same thing at my workplace. A larger percentage of my colleagues and superiors don't like me and discriminate against me because of my skin color. They hate working with me, but have no choice because of my exceptional brain and intelligence in the marketing department, which is a great asset to the company. Many of them have tried to set and frame me up so I could be sent away, and majority of the time, they almost succeeded. But every time they did, and it seemed like there is no way out, I take it to God in prayer, and He helps me overcome. And that is what I want you to do. Take this your issue to God in prayer, Eunice said. Chukwudozie breathed heavily. But I don't know how to pray. I am not a church person. I barely go to church, he told Eunice. Don't worry, I will teach you how to pray, Eunice said to him. Then she held his hands and prayed with him that night before Chukwudozie dropped her off at her house and returned back to Tadi's place. And so, in the days that followed, Eunice sent Chukwudozie voice notes teaching him what and how to pray about the issue and burden weighing him down. She also sent him daily Bible scriptures for him to read along as he prays. And 2 weeks later, Chukwudozie received a phone call from his sister Dana telling him that his parents want him to come back home because they've learned the truth about Bernice and we're sorry. What had happened was that Bernice and her best friend, or do we say a lesbian partner, were secretly at it again when her parents and some friends and families caught them in the act. It was Bernice's birthday and her family planned a secret birthday surprise for her. Her parents had lied to her that they would be traveling to the village for an important political function. So, they left a day before her birthday to a hotel after faking that they were sad about not being around for her birthday, just to make the surprise work. Her sister Erica pretended to have gotten an emergency call from a friend and left the house early that morning of Bernice's birthday as well. So, when Judith came to celebrate with Bernice, believing that everyone was away and unaware of the planned surprise, took Judith to her room and started their rubbish again, forgetting to even lock her room. Her mother, Erica, and other family and friends, which Chukwudozie's mother and sisters were part of, all came and caught Bernice in the act. Instead of them giving Bernice a surprise, they were the ones met with a shocking surprise. And that was it. Chief Nelson told Honorable Amechi that he didn't care anymore about the favors he got from him if it meant that his son would marry a woman like Bernice, and so called off the marriage arrangements between their children. We are sorry we didn't believe you, Chukwudozie's parents said to him when he got home. His father unfreezed his accounts, helped him get back a new passport, and restored everything he had previously seized and denied Chukwudozie of. Chukwudozie was happy as he couldn't help but feel grateful to Eunice, who told him to pray about the situation and taught him how to do so. He knew that it was God who took care of the situation exactly as Eunice had said God would. Thank you, Eunice, he said to her as he went to pay her a visit again to share the good news with her. Chukwudozie and Eunice became very good friends afterwards. As a matter of fact, Eunice also became one of Chukwudozie's confidants, just as Tade and his sister Dana is. Chukwudozie started attending church regularly. He attended church with Eunice. And with each passing week, a new bond began to grow between them. And one day, Chukwudozie realized that he had fallen so in love with Eunice and confessed his love to her, asking her to marry him. Eunice, who had also fallen in love with him, accepted to be Chukwudozie's wife. Later, Chukwudozie told his parents about Eunice and told them he wants to marry her. His parents accepted to let him marry a woman of his choice, having regretted their past action and the mistake of almost forcing their son to marry an immoral woman. They were happy and told Chukwudozie that they want to meet their would-be daughter-in-law. However, when Chukwudozie brought Eunice to his parents and they saw that she was an albino, they objected. God forbid. We can't have an albino for a daughter-in-law, Chief Nelson and his wife said. We have agreed to let you marry any woman of your choice, but never an albino, they said. For weeks, they kept objecting, refusing to give Chukwudozie and Eunice their blessing, even though Chukwudozie tried his best to convince them. And after many months of trying to reason with his parents and make them accept Eunice without success, Chukwudozie went ahead to marry Eunice in a secret civil court wedding. This was possible because he had rented his own apartment and moved from his parents' house shortly after they had reconciled after Bernice's issue. The only member of his family who knew was Adana, and she gave her support. As for Eunice, she was used to being discriminated because of her skin condition. She loves Chukwudozie and wants to spend the rest of her life with him. And she knows he loves her genuinely as well. So, she agreed to their secret wedding. 4 months after their wedding, Chukwudozie's parents found out about Chukwudozie and Eunice's secret marriage from their youngest daughter, Obiageri, who had also found out a few days earlier after stumbling on a text message from Chukwudozie on Adana's phone. Chief Nelson and his wife were furious. Chukwudozie had been careful to keep it away from them and keep Eunice and his wedding ring hidden whenever they paid him a visit in his home or when he paid them a visit and went to work. How can it be said that an albino is part of my family? Chief Nelson said in anger. Chukwudozie's mother decided to pay him a visit unannounced and told him, "You must divorce her. She can't be part of our family," she said. "Well, it is too late. Eunice is my wife now. I would not divorce her. So you and father had better learn to accept her," Chukwudozie replied his mother. Well, for months, his parents did not relent and kept trying to make him divorce Eunice. But when they saw that he wouldn't, they started thinking of ways to separate them. Then finally, they saw a perfect opportunity to do so. Eunice had become pregnant, and when Chukwudozie's mother learned that her pregnancy was now almost 9 months old and that she was near delivery, she spoke to her husband and came up with an idea. They decided to pretend to accept Eunice and make peace so they would perfectly carry out their evil plan. "My daughter, you know we didn't get to know and bond with you before you married our son because of the misunderstanding we once had. If you don't mind, we would love for you to come stay with us so we can get to know you and bond with you. And because we would love for our grandchild to be born in our home," Chukwudozie's mother said to Eunice after visiting her and Chukwudozie and having pretended to have come make peace. Chukwudozie objected and said that he wasn't comfortable with the idea, but Eunice convinced him to let her go and said that she would also love to get to know his parents and bond with them. And so, Eunice went for a short stay at her husband's parents' house. Everything went well as Chukwudozie's parents pretended all the while to have accepted Eunice and were friendly towards her. They pampered her and treated her nicely. Then one day, Chukwudozie's mother asked, "What is your expected date of delivery? I need to know so that I can clear my schedule and be fully around to take you to the hospital and be the first to welcome my grandchild," she said to Eunice after dinner one evening. Eunice, unsuspecting of their plan, told her mother-in-law the dates. Then the day of delivery came. Eunice called out to her mother-in-law as she cried from labor pains. But instead of her mother-in-law to take her to the hospital when she saw that Eunice was in labor, she called her husband and they set their plan to motion. They held Eunice down, forcefully put an overdose of sleeping pills into her mouth, and locked her up in the room after taking away her phone. That was their plan, to prevent and weaken Eunice so that she would not be able to push out the baby, and hope that she would die in the process.
God forbid that it is an albino that would have our grandchild. Sophia, we refuse such abomination.
They said. They planned that later they would take her to the hospital and pretend that she developed labor complications right from home when they are sure she wouldn't make it, so that Chukwudozie or anyone else would not find out what they have done. They believed that by then, Eunice would have been dead and won't be able to tell her story. They put on loud music to prevent the possibility of anyone outside hearing Eunice's loud cry. Their househelp had run out from the kitchen when she first heard Eunice's cry, but they shouted at her and ordered her to return to the kitchen and face the job she was being paid for. So, Eunice groaned and cried in pain for many minutes. Until slowly, she began to lose strength and her voice slowly became weaker. Then suddenly, Adana came visiting. Chief Nelson and his wife were shocked because they weren't expecting her, because she usually called to inform them before visiting. Adana noticed something was wrong immediately she walked into her parents' house. First, it was the loud music, which she insisted on turning off even though her parents had tried to stop her. Then she noticed the tension and uneasiness in them even though they had tried to hide it. Then she remembered Eunice immediately and asked where Eunice was, because Chukwudozie had told her Eunice was with her parents for a short stay. "Mommy, Daddy, where is Eunice?" she asked worriedly, sensing that she wasn't okay. Without waiting to get a reply from her parents, Adana ran upstairs and began checking all the rooms. When she got closer to the room Eunice was, she heard faint cries. She tried to push the door open and discovered that it was locked. Quickly, Adana ran downstairs and asked her parents to give her the keys to that room, threatening to expose them to the world if they didn't. So, they allowed her to snatch the keys from them, and Adana ran back upstairs to quickly open the door. She was shocked to realize that her parents were trying to hurt Eunice and her unborn baby. Quickly, Adana carried Eunice and shouted on top of her voice, calling the househelp and Abdul the gateman to come help her with Eunice. Adana drove Eunice to the hospital and called to inform Chukwudozie. Well, due to the complication as a result of the prolonged labor and the overdose of the sleeping pills, it affected the baby's ability to breathe and its responsiveness at that critical stage. So, they lost the baby. But Eunice survived. Chukwudozie had wanted to press charges against his parents and to expose them publicly, using the doctor's report and Adana, who agreed to testify against her parents, because she also could not stand such evil and wickedness from her parents. However, Eunice begged them not to and told them to leave Chief Nelson and his wife to God to judge accordingly. "If my only crime is my skin condition, then I leave them to God to judge as He pleases," she said in tears. Chukwudozie listened to Eunice, but decided never to have anything to do with his parents again. He, however, threatened his father that he was still going to press charges and expose them publicly if his father dared to deny him of his birthright, or if he dared to use his influence to try to freeze his account or prevent people and companies from helping him like he did before. He threatened his father and made him transfer all that was due to him and his birthright. And with this, Chukwudozie relocated to Port Harcourt with his wife, never to be in the same city with his parents or associate with them again. 6 years later, Eunice had gone to pay a sick friend a visit who was admitted in the hospital. As she was stepping into the hospital, an accident victim was suddenly rushed in. Nurses and paramedics surrounded the victim as they rushed him into the ICU in a stretcher, So Eunice didn't get to see who the victim was. 45 minutes later, when Eunice was on her way out after seeing a sick friend, she heard the surgeons telling the men who had brought the accident victim that the victim needed urgent blood transfusion, but that his blood type is rare and they do not have it in their blood bank. The surgeons urged the men to hurry and search for the victim's blood type. Make calls, contact people. Maybe someone might be or know someone with an O negative blood group, the doctor said. Eunice paused. O negative? She is O negative. And without thinking twice, she approached them and told them she was willing to donate blood to save the victim. She was tested, her blood confirmed to match the victim's own, and she donated her blood. A week later, the accident victim was fully stable and he requested to meet the woman who had donated her blood to save his life without even knowing him, so he would thank her and possibly repay her for a kind gesture. Eunice was contacted by the hospital and informed of this. She decided to go see the man, not because she wanted him to repay or thank her, because she believed she did it for humanity, but because the hospital kept calling her and told her that the man had been insisting. And when Eunice got to the hospital, she was shocked to see that it was Chief Nelson, her father-in-law, the one who with his wife had almost left her for dead and killed her first child as a result. Chief Nelson was also shocked to realize that the person who had selflessly donated her blood to save his life was Eunice. Chief Nelson had come to Port Harcourt for a business meeting and met with the accident on his way back to the airport after the meeting. He felt ashamed and speechless, unable to lift up his head and look Eunice in the eyes. The lady he and his wife had once discriminated and thought less of because of her skin is the one who had donated her blood to save him. That day, he learned that albinos are very much human like the rest of us and have the same blood as we do. The reason their skin looks very pale and different from the rest of us is as a result of a rare genetic condition caused by mutations or changes of certain genes that affect the amount of melanin their body produces, causing the lack of pigments in their skin, hair, and eyes. Yes, they suffer issues with impaired vision, increased risk of cancer and sunburn due to little or no melanin at all. All these conditions which can be managed with proper care and by strictly adhering to preventive measures. And oftentimes, even people who aren't albinos also suffer these conditions. The doctor educated Chief Nelson and he came to know how ignorant and wrong he and his wife had been due to societal and cultural perceptions. He begged Eunice, asking for her forgiveness. Eunice was hurt seeing him because it brought back the memories of what they did to her. But she released forgiveness to him. After all, even her own mother had once treated her no different, and she did forgive her mother. But also, most importantly, because Chief Nelson was repentant, and God commands us to forgive. Eunice went home and told Chukwudozie about his father. Though it was harder for Chukwudozie to release forgiveness to his parents, but he also eventually did. Chief Nelson and his wife later learned that Chukwudozie and Eunice now had 2 children, a beautiful boy and a girl, and they weren't albinos. The whole family reunited and they lived happily ever after. The end.